All right, so let's get into actual logistics of my model, okay? Because there's a few stipulations, okay? So I'm gonna go back to the picture I showed you guys here, okay? And what I want you to understand is this point right here, okay? I'm gonna label this in blue. This point below this, okay, below this, but before this IFG here, it's gonna be labeled in green, okay? Just listen. If we hit this point at the same time as the IFG forms, I will likely not take the trade because this to me is my break even point. Okay. So, what do I mean by that? Well, let me see if I can find an example. Okay. Right here. This is the 2 minute time frame. We have a little fair value gap here. We have a little fair value gap here. And we have a little fair value gap here. And we have our liquidity point here, which we very clearly reverse and get momentum off of. So I'm going to combine all three of these because they're one kind of, combination. And I'm going to look at the high, which is going to be right here, which is the next high before these fair value gets formed. So I'm only going to enter a trade like this if we close above these inversions before this next internal high gets hit right here. So this would be a valid trade. Okay. So it's the high. I'm looking at the high before the fair value gap forms. Now in video 4, I'm going to go over a little more advanced, be a little more advanced. Okay. But this is the basic rule for any sort of beginner trading. Okay. So I have that. Now let me go to an example where it's actually invalid. Okay. According to what I, trade right here, right? It would be invalid. Okay. We don't have the most obvious liquidity sweep here. We aren't delivering off anything here. And this is a complete pattern trade. Okay. But I'm showing you what this trade not being valid because do you see how we closed above this bearish fair value gap and we hit the high at the same time? It is a trade where I'm not going to take it because I ideally want us to close below so I can go break even at this next internal high. So this is a trade I likely would not actually enter. Okay, if that makes sense. Okay. Okay, let me just go to a couple more examples. Okay, right here. We're going to combine this fair value gap, this fair value gap, and this fair value gap. Okay, like this. We close above every single bearish gap. Right here would be the entry. Okay, maybe target this high. Okay, it's a negative RR, so it's maybe not a setup I take. And as I'm showing you these setups, just know you don't have to go for 1 hour plays in this. You don't have to go for 2 hour. You could go for 5 hour trades. You just have to make sure the target is there. Okay, a lot of trades I go for are 1 to 2 hour, but you can go for higher hour trades. Right, it just depends on what target's there. So this one, the high before the fair value gaps were formed was right here. Okay, this high right here. And does it close without hitting the high first? Yes, it does. So this would be a valid entry. Okay. What about this one right here? Well, we have a fair value gap here, and then we have a fair value gap here. So I'm gonna combine these. Okay, I'm gonna make it the one big gap here, and I'm gonna look for that high before these are formed, which is gonna be right here. And you can see, does it close above and hit this high at the same time? Yes, it does. So this would be an invalid trade, okay, because we hit the high at the same time as a close. So that is the logistics of that, okay, right? That is the logistics of that. That is the one thing you got to understand when you're taking my strategy. And if I'm on stream and I'm talking about price and I'm like, okay, we broke above this, so this is bullish, and I'm on like the 15-minute time frame, just know that does not mean I'm always going to be entering because sometimes if we break above a very higher time frame for value gap, but we smack the high at the same time, it is invalid for my model. Is it still bullish? Yes, right? Like if we get a setup and it absolutely just rips through the high and closes above the inversion, am I still going to use this zone as some sort of support, saying like, okay, even though it's invalid, I'm still going to be bullish off of it? Of course, because I can still look for like a lower time frame setup here, right? Or maybe here off the higher time frame zone, even if this initial entry is invalid because maybe we close above and hit the high at the same time. Okay, so like let me just say that one more time, just rephrase it. So like look, right here's a perfect example. We have a really, really good 3-minute inversion right here, right? And it's so textbook, but it's not valid because we hit the next internal high at the same exact time. But is it gonna mean I'm bearish? No, it just means it's not a valid entry, but I'm still likely bullish because this does go up a lot of momentum. There's other PD arrays that do form here. For example, a chain to say delivery right here. Okay. And just because it's invalid doesn't mean it's bad. It means I'm still gonna be bullish, but it's just an entry I'm not trying to take. Now, like I said, the more you trade, and which I'm going to talk about more in video 4, the more you can be taking setups like this. But for beginners and for anyone starting my strategy, this is not something I'd ideally take because it hits a break even spot at the same time as a close, and then I'm not going to know where to go break even. Is this still bullish, and am I still expecting higher prices? 100%. But it's we hit the internal high, so it's just not a trade. It's not really part of my model I teach to beginners. Okay, so that is that rule. It's a very important to understand. And yeah, next video I'm going to be going over stop losses. And yeah, see you in the next one.